How do we make the GOP great again? Well, I have a guest here today, a conservative who believes he has the answer and is here for a little straight talk. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Well, and a good Tuesday to you, and this is a great discussion that I'm having today with a gentleman named Robert West. Mr. West is a veteran. He is been married for 28 years to the same woman, and is a great patriot. This is a man who set up the largest Tea Party in America, one of the largest Tea Party organizations in America. So when I say conservative, there's no question about it. And if he looks a little bit familiar, he should, because I interviewed Robert West when the precinct chairs from all over CD4 were deciding who was going to replace John Ratcliffe on the ballot. And of course, that was Pat Fallon, who I'm a big fan of at this point. And but Robert was one of those who was nominated. He had the opportunity. I think that you did have the opportunity to actually address the you had two nominations.
Absolutely.
And what I love about this is Robert is also a precinct chair, so he could vote for himself. Love that. And that's and if I'm running for office, any President Donald Trump can vote for himself, as it should be. So you're a precinct chair, and one of my favorite things about that whole event is that we had basically there were 144 precinct chairs who were making the decision to replace Ratcliffe on the ballot, and so basically there were like almost 20 people who were vying for that, more than 20. Yep. And you all went. You were running a campaign. Two precinct chairs. You were going and meeting with them, and you had a couple who had committed to you. Yeah, I'll vote for you. Not only that, but also nominated you. And then when it came out to how many votes each person got, you only got one. And we were laughing about that, because it's not like those people can go, oh yeah, well I was the one who voted for you, because you're like, no, I voted for myself. Oh, sorry. Ouch.
No, it was great. I felt really bad for Travis Ransom, because we spoke to him in Atlanta. He's the mayor over there, and he got 16 votes. Mm-hmm. And he goes, but since I've been talking to people, and since it's all over, I'm up to 32 now. So you never know in a secret ballot.
No, you never know. And so we're here to talk a little bit about something that's unique, and it's something that may be unsettling to some Republicans, because both you and I can say this with confidence. Both you and I have been fans of Gregg Abbott.
Oh yes, I voted for the man. Yes,
absolutely. And I think we even had a discussion yesterday about how we supported him, how we were impressed with what he's done as governor. But what's happened recently has really changed a lot of that. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. He started out with his red flag laws. The contact tracking thing, I wasn't a big fan of, and Bob Hall certainly wasn't a big fan of.
Senator Bob Hall, that's right.
Our state senator. And it sort of took off from there. And a few months ago, we started seeing these mandates come down, and they violated the Texas Constitution, the Bill of Rights that we have. And it's a very strongly written Bill of Rights. It's very clear. You can't read it and say he hasn't violated it. And county started passing censures against him.
So one of the things that you had mentioned was that the state Bill of Rights, state of Texas Bill of Rights, is actually stronger than the U.S.
Yes. The way it's written, it says any law passed in defiance of this. It's not Congress shall not. It says no person or collections of person within the state of Texas can violate these things. And if they try, it's null and void. You can't get any clearer than that.
So let's talk specifically about where Governor Abbott has overstepped his bounds.
Well, anybody can go online and look at its Texas Constitution, and you only have to look at the first section and the second section.
Yeah, because I warn anyone who tries to go and read the Texas Constitution, War and Peace is shorter. So go ahead.
Well, those two pieces, the only pieces you have to look at. And we've got 33 rights in the Bill of Rights listed in the Texas Constitution. And the last one is access to the public beaches. It doesn't sound like this huge groundbreaking thing, but it's very clearly written. No person or collections of person in the state government can close access to the public beaches to members of the public. Just can't do it. Not allowed. And he closed those, and it doesn't sound like a big thing.
Unless it's in your Constitution.
Unless it's in your Constitution, which is up here above your laws.
Just a little bit.
Yes. So the oath they take, and most people take this in the state of Texas, you're going to uphold the U.S. Constitution. I put my life on the line for it. So did my children. So did my dad. So did his dad, my brothers. So it's a big deal for me. Second is the state constitution. And then after that, it's the laws. So you can't have a law that violates the Texas state constitution. You can't have anything in the Constitution of Texas that violates the U.S. Supreme Court law or the Constitution. So these things are in there for a reason, and it ends with, so help me God. And when Abbott broke his word, it wasn't just to us. So help me God is pretty strong. And it's not, I'll try my best, I'll see what I can do, or in case I think it's an emergency, it's, you won't do this, you can't do this. And he promised, and he swore before God that he'd uphold that Constitution and protect our rights. He didn't just fail to protect them, he violated them.
So one of the things that you're proposing is something known as censure, and you actually have a website that we'll talk about in a little bit, but tell me a little bit about what that means to censure Governor Abbott.
Okay, for a political party to censure a sitting governor of their own party.
And we're talking, okay, so let's start with that. We're not talking about something that is, we're talking about what is inside the Republican Party of Texas.
Exactly.
All right, so within the Republican Party of Texas, go ahead.
Within the party, if someone violates the principles of the party has rules. You're not behaving like a Republican. You need to turn around and do this other thing. I think the Catholics call it excommunication.
Okay.
There might be a few warnings before you get to that point. But at some point, you're so far off the page that you're no longer practicing Republican.
Yeah.
And I think we've reached that point. We've identified 9 different items on the Bill of Rights that he's violated, and that's just the state constitution.
And what's interesting is you're really not alone in this, because there have been 9 counties who agree with you on this, and they are Delta, Montgomery, Hardin, Hood, Denton, Ector, Harrison, Eastland, and Llano. Is that Llano?
2 L's, yes.
Okay, Llano, Texas. I guess I forgot, I guess, how that's spelled, but those 9 counties, Rockwall's not in there yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, so I'm curious too. Where are you on that? Have you talked with Laverne Kinnemeyer, our
I have not contacted her. I've contacted a lot of different county organizations and women's auxiliaries and men's clubs and things like that. I would really prefer somebody within those organizations and within that county go to their executive committee and ask them, do you believe in the rule of law? Do you believe in the Constitution? What are you doing to support it?
Okay, so let's say that we censure Abbott. What is going to happen? And according to the party rules, how exactly does one go about censuring the governor? How many votes do you have to? How many counties do you have to have for it to have any impact?
Well, that's a weird thing, because it's, in some people's eyes, it's just a feel-good thing. You did bad. But that's how we got rid of Joe Strauss as Speaker, when our representatives would not do it. We've controlled the House for 20 years, but we don't pick who the Speaker is. And
right.
This year's no exception.
Democrats.
Yes.
Yes.
So when Joe Strauss saw overwhelmingly all these counties censured him, he was just embarrassed to be Speaker anymore. You just can't do it. I think if we get enough counties to say Gregg Abbott violated his oath, not once, not twice, not 9 times, but more than 9 times. Number 17 is when you take property from an individual. Our Constitution says there's 3 reasons to do it, and disease is not one of them. So by taking the use of someone's property, you take that property. Our Constitution also says restitution shall be rendered prior to the taking. So how many business owners are watching right now had their business shut down, their private property, the use of it taken from them, and how many received a check?
Yeah.
From the state of Texas, by our Constitution, you shall is a very strong legal word.
It is.
Issue that restitution prior to the taking. That wasn't done.
And so basically what this is, I mean, I'll put it this way. If you have counties that censure Abbott, those who vote in the primary are going to be very unlikely to vote for you for reelection. So this is really all about the next primary where Governor Abbott is up. I think that's in 2022.
22, yes, 22. Almost everybody in the state's up in 22.
Yeah. So when 2022 comes, basically it's projecting to the governor, hey, you don't have our support. We're looking elsewhere. Is that basically what this is going to do?
Yes. In the last survey I saw, he's already dropped to about 9th place on the pick of people who voters and Republicans would like to see in the governor's mansion in 2022. The other thing this serves is to let our elected representatives that are not protecting our rights, their oath is the same. They've let him violate that oath, and very few of them have done anything about it. They just will not cross him. So their loyalty is more to the governor than it is to the voters.
So what do you think the state reps and the state senators could do?
At one extreme, there is impeachment, and there's a rule they can call their own special session under 665 with just a simple majority.
Okay.
And so you violated these rules. I tell people all the time, if you hired armed guards, a group of armed guards to protect your family, and you gave them a 2-year contract, and you couldn't fire them unless they broke the rules, you would take a lot of time and effort to write these rules down. You can't go in my children's bedroom unless it's a life or death situation. You can't steal from me. You can't hit one of my family members. And if I fire one of you for breaking the rules, the rest of you have to expel that armed guard because I can't do it. And you have to keep that armed guard from coming back into my home. Now, in that situation, you took the effort to write these rules. You hired these people with this understanding. How many of those rules would you allow to be broken before you would fire them? Well, I've identified 9, 10, 12 rules that Abbott broke. And our other guards, our government that we hired to protect our rights, are not doing their job. They're not reining him in.
So you would favor a special session? I
would have favored a special session as soon as he broke the first item in the Constitution. And if you go to Section 2, the shortest, the quickest read in the Texas Constitution is Article 2, separation of powers.
Okay.
And it says the governor's going to do governor stuff, the legislator's going to make laws, and the judges are going to decide. And none of those people can do anything not mentioned herein, meaning the Constitution. When they passed this Emergency Powers Act and the legislator said to the governor, hey, we're going to give you this emergency authority just to issue edicts and make rules just on a whim, that's unconstitutional.
I see.
They can no more add powers to the governor's office that are not listed in the Constitution than they can pass a law stripping him of all his powers. That's why we have a Constitution.
You know, it's interesting because today is election day for an important Senate race. Shelley Luther is kind of the poster child of businesses that have been robbed of their right of commerce and by the governor. And she bucked the system and was put in jail for opening up her hair salon. And she was the government basically said she could not, her business, even though her employees were suffering, that they couldn't pay their bills, they couldn't meet their mortgage or pay their rent. To the government, that didn't matter. All that mattered was she wanted to keep doing her business, and so she's running for state senate. It's interesting because Governor Abbott is supporting her opponent.
Well, shows you what side he's on.
Yeah. And her opponent is a sitting state rep, right?
Oh yeah. I think he's been in government for way too long, 8 years or so. Yeah. But she would be cutting hair today.
Yeah.
If the government would have followed what it was supposed to follow.
True.
You know, the government the government and the professional politicians got in my business. Okay, let's see how you like it when I get into your business.
Yes.
So she's taking a seat, and she's going to win this election. There's no doubt in my mind. She's a very impressive lady, very smart, very sharp. She doesn't back down for anybody. I think we both agree that she's got enough sand to hold her ground.
Yeah.
There's another gentleman over in, I think his name is Stan Penn in McKinney. He's running for city council.
City council, yeah.
He would much rather run his pub,
Yeah.
the Celtic
Yeah.
pub. He
Yes.
loves that.
Yeah.
But he can't.
Right.
And he goes, okay, fine. I can't do my business. Well, then I'll get involved in your business.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we have put up that wall between our public servants and our public.
Boy, isn't that true?
And we've forgotten which side, who's in charge and who's not. We hired them.
That's what made Donald Trump so exciting. Is he's not a politician. He didn't give a darn, and people are offended by some of the things he said.
Yes.
It energized me every time he tweets. I don't care what it is. It's energized me, and I think that having people like Shelley Luther, and what's the guy in McKinney? What's his
Stan Penn.
Stan Penn, having them come into office. I mean, even in McClendon Chisholm, we've got it is just full of politicians. That's all they are. They take no stand on anything of conservative. And in Rockwall County, more than anything, we have so many people who really they are there to serve themselves. And we've got to be able to do something. And I'm saying this because as an introduction to kind of what you're calling your 5-star plan. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the 5-star plan came out. I mean, everybody's talking about the swamp, and you just said breath of fresh air, fresh blood, fresh ideas.
Yes.
How a great pond or a great fishing spot becomes a swamp is lack of flow.
Yeah.
It just sits there and it stagnates, and the same people circulate around, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And so you just can't stand it anymore. You got to do something.
Yeah.
You got to break that dam or dig a ditch or something and get some fresh water in there to clean it out and turn it into something useful again. And what I kept running into is people were asking me and my wife, well, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Elected officials, people who were involved were asking us what to do. And I'm like, well, you can, talk to your state senator, talk to your, we did that. What happens between that and picking up a rifle? And I've actually gotten that question.
Wow.
And I'm like, my God, about 1,000 things, 10,000 things, anything other than that. 'Cause I would much rather see our revolutions at the ballot box. We don't have to bury bodies. We don't have to rebuild the bridges.
Right.
Because I've been around the world a couple of times, and that's the result.
But your 5-star plan is basically you've on your website is your attempt to answer the question, what can we do?
Exactly. The first thing you can do is we can push for this censure. Just about every county in Texas, except for a couple of them, have a Republican executive committee. That's the very lowest rung on the Republican ladder as far as official positions.
Yeah.
Most of those seats are not filled. They're just sitting there empty. You can go there and say, hey, I live in this precinct, and I want to be on the executive committee to represent my 510 voters or so that each precinct represents. And in most cases, the county chair will be happy, with open arms. He'll be joyous. Oh, we filled up the seat.
Now, and then you have counties though that you have filled all of the precinct chairs, and I think that's true for Rockwall. And so you have people who really, in my opinion, there's some who have no business on the executive committee, but that is an elected position. So if you are contested, you're on the ballot.
Yes. And in most cases, across Texas, these seats are empty, and they stay empty for years.
Yes,
I think Sulphur Springs should have 36 chairs. They have 4. My goodness, there's just no representation.
Yeah.
So if you were to go to this group, go to the 5-star plan website, there's a step-by-step guide. There's all the contact information. Here's the arguments. Here's an example of what we want in a censure. And if you were to go to, say, Sulphur Springs and say, hey, why don't you guys consider this? And they look at it, and you go through those arguments, and you really can't argue them. Yeah, he broke the Constitution 6 ways to Sunday. Yep. Including Sunday when he banned the churches.
Yes.
Now, a year ago, you wouldn't have believed me if I said the governor of Texas was going to outlaw church services for 8 months.
Right.
That's just ridiculous.
That would never happen.
No,
not in Texas.
No,
not in Texas. And that is interesting. And so, again, you and your wife, Carol, who's here in studio, and Carol, what's great about the two of you is y'all are a great team. We had a really great conversation yesterday, and we have so much in common, and especially as it relates to politics and also our faith. We share a common faith in Christ Jesus, and one of the things that we had talked about is our concern about how the church has become a feckless remnant of what God has asked us to do, and I don't think either one of us or anyone watching thinks that that politics is going to solve the world's problem. That Christ is the answer to that, but we also recognize that sometimes we're pushed into positions and in places and to doing things, also known as calling. All the men, those in the Bible, anyone who was called, they went kicking and screaming. So whenever I hear someone say, "Well, I was called to run for office," I just go, okay, why? I mean, if you were called to run for office, then no one else would do it. And that was true for me when I was running for city council. I tried everything to get someone else to run. I found someone, I recruited someone to run for mayor, who ended up being a disaster. But bottom line, it kind of goes to the issue, the heart of the problem, I think, that if the church is not, if we're not the church, if the church is not standing up for righteousness and being salt and light into a very dark world, then how on earth can we hope to see anyone rise up and actually make a difference?
Exactly. We have God throughout our documents, our founding documents.
Absolutely.
There is no doubt. You go back to the Federalist Papers.
Yes.
And without a morality, without a religion, we can't have a republic.
Yes.
There's not enough law in the world to make people behave the way they should behave.
Exactly.
And and if what was the quote? If all men were angels, we wouldn't need a government.
Yeah, that's true.
And if all men were angels, any government would work. But
it's funny. My pastor, Todd Wagner at Watermark, he likes to say that church is a great place except for the people.
They'll ruin it every time.
Absolutely. And so because of that, so in spite of that, and it kind of goes to the Apostle Paul, who would in Romans just talk about that he did the very things he hated. "Oh, wretched man I am." And Timothy, he said, "Among sinners, I'm the worst of all." And so it's funny. There's a lot of never Trumpers out there who are evangelical Christians, as you and I are, and they absolutely refuse to accept Donald Trump because of the man he is. I guess they forget David of the Bible was just a little bit off. He was somewhat imperfect, but that's the problem. We're not. What you're saying is we're not looking for perfect people.
No.
We're just looking for people who are willing to stand up for righteousness.
Would you rather have, a Forrest Gump or, Dr. Evil? IQ test, this guy's got it. He's got the education. He's got the background. We should elect him. Well, Forrest Gump would look at it and go, "I don't think that's right." I would much rather have that. I think a good heart is more important than a poli-sci degree.
Yeah, amen to that.
So...
and I've got a poli-sci degree, so that's even
See,
better. Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
Boy, talk about what we have
Preach
in
it.
common.
Come on now.
So, and when I was running, I was telling people, I said, look, I have nothing against attorneys, okay, per se. There's some good ones out there.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
But you look at politics, and it's just one after the other, after the other, after the other.
Yes.
And why that is a bad thing is you've got one view of looking at things.
Right.
One way. Where a plumber would come in there, or let's see, a hairdresser would come in. Okay, this is the way it is. This is the way we need to make it.
Yes.
We're going to make this better.
Yes.
Donald Trump, developer, he comes in. We need to fix it. Well, we can't do that politically. Get out of my way. Here's how we do it. And he's fixed it.
What I love about our conversation yesterday is Carol, your wife's from Washington State. Her family comes from a fishing family and small businesses, and she was always a Trump supporter. You, I think, were like me, a Cruz guy, and but she was always steadfast. And I asked her why that is. She doesn't want to be on camera. I understand, but she has a great mind, and one of the things that she talked about was the fact that she grew up in a family that that were small businessmen, and they were no nonsense, and they understood how to get things done. She saw that in Donald Trump, something that, and I think for me, I was clouded by just his lifestyle, and I thought that, I thought he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. I thought for sure he was a closet liberal, and boy, was I wrong. And you've had to eat a lot of crow. I'm eating crow with Carol too. She's right, and
she's right. I'm wrong, which is much more important to her.
Amen to that, brother. I agree. So, that's how you stay 28 years married. But go ahead.
Exactly. The first time I voted, I did not vote for Donald Trump. I voted against Hillary Clinton.
Amen.
The second time I voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah,
man,
yes,
I'm a jinx, aren't I?
I'm with you though. I'm with you. And Ben Shapiro,
new people and new ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
I go places. I fix things. I work on airplanes as a background. I do a little bit of land development on the side, and other people, maybe they run a bar, maybe they do hair, but everybody has a different way of looking at things, and that's why we have three gospels. They all say essentially the same thing, but they speak to different hearts, and different people can recognize that. A lot of people, as soon as a lawyer starts talking, you lose them.
Yeah. Yes.
And a lot of it, unfortunately, they want it to be perfect, and this is the world. It's never going to be perfect.
Right.
And a lot of them, the longer something takes, the more they get paid. So,
boy, isn't that true?
It's a different approach.
Now, your 5-star plan is actually you're working it into a book, and yes. The goal of it is articulated on your website, is to energize 5 million voters to participate in the 2022 Texas Republican primaries. Now, that doesn't sound like a big goal until you look at the reality of how many people vote in the last primary.
1.5 million.
1.5 million people, Texans. And how many Texans do we have? And how many, what's the population in Texas?
36 million or so. Probably 40 now.
So one of the things we were talking about is that the primaries, this is where we find our conservatives. This is where we basically thresh out the chaff. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, because so few people vote, the people who are in office have a much greater advantage.
Yeah.
And so we've got a big hill to climb. So let's talk a little bit more about your plan.
Okay. Well, I've been going around. I've been speaking to groups. I've been trying to get people online and in the grocery store and where I work, and it's been successful. And what I'm doing is, if you voted in the last primary, you're a great example. You know what it is, and you know how important it is.
Yep.
Get 5 people. That's it. Get 5 people and bring them to the polls with you. Educate them.
Educate. That's the key. I mean, it's not just that they vote.
No, you can't just get a busload of people there and let them loose.
Right.
They'll pick their favorite name.
Absolutely.
But like yourself, if you could probably find 5 people that didn't vote in the primary in your church. Fair?
I don't know.
Probably.
I really don't know. I honestly don't know. But because we're very active. We come from a very active church.
But given a year, you should be able to find 5 people somewhere.
Sure.
Because only 1.5 million voted last time.
Sure.
Or you could go to the polls in your county and look at the list of people and go, I don't see my wife's name. I don't see my kid's name.
Go to the voter list.
Voters list.
And you get those from the election department. And,
yes.
And it is a matter of public record. So
yes.
you can find out
who voted, how often,
whether Democrat or Republican. Yep. And yeah, go ahead.
So all that's there, all that information's there, but I'm not asking anybody to do that much homework. But find 5 people in the course of the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Should be pretty easy.
Yeah.
And just educate them. Look, these people broke the rules, and you can't trust his word. He broke his oath to God. He's not going to keep his word to you.
Right.
It's getting to be rare to find somebody that'll keep their word.
Yeah.
And so you get those 5 people, you educate them up, and make sure they get to the polls.
Yes.
Now, if these people become energized, well, then maybe they can find 5 people, and they can find 5 people, and so on. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Now, fortunately, from what I've heard, probably that 1.5 million people that showed up and voted last time, a lot of them, Gregg Abbott is not at the top of their list.
Right.
They haven't quite realized is all those legislators and senators that did nothing. All those county judges that happily accept their junior crown and put it on and became lords and masters of their counties. It's ridiculous.
No kidding. It is, yes.
Okay. We had 30-something sheriffs stand up and put their name on a document, the first mandate that came out, and said, no, we follow the Constitution, and we're not going to enforce this.
Yeah.
It's not constitutional.
Yeah.
So kudos to those people.
Well, yeah, and it's rare that we're seeing that, but we do have people out there that are upholding the Constitution. One of the things that I found interesting about your plan is that you plan to run an entire new slate of citizen legislatures against career politicians. And so what you mean by slate is that you basically are trying to find a group of people, and you basically say, here is the
five-star candidates.
Five-star candidates. So the five-star candidates.
The five-star candidates, you look at somebody like Stan Penn, you look at somebody like Shelley Luther, you look at somebody, if you want to go in the past, and look at somebody like Bob Hall, never held office, didn't know what they were doing. Okay, yeah, maybe there's a pamphlet in the desk, I'll figure this thing out, and does an awesome job. The only 100% conservative rating we have is by someone who never held office before. Donald Trump never held office before he became president. I'm like, I want to start off at the top. Okay, good. It's fresh ideas. So he didn't know that the stuff that he accomplished wasn't possible. If he knew it wasn't possible, he wouldn't even try it.
That's true. That's true. And so we find those individuals, and that's, I think, the biggest challenge is finding people, conservatives, who are willing to run up against entrenched incumbents who have no problem demonizing and vilifying their opponent.
Out and out
lying. I can attest firsthand. I've experienced that firsthand. So, it's hard enough to get some conservatives to vote. Finding a conservative who's willing to stand up on principle and make a difference. How do we do that?
Well, let me see here. We had about 13 colonies when we started.
We did.
And a lot of people got recruited to those positions to stand up to the world's only superpower at the time by having conversations over beer in a bar somewhere.
Right.
Others got convinced while holding the Bible in one hand, waiting for the preacher to get done with his sermon. They were having a side conversation. But those people are every day. Those people are standing in line. They're checking you out. They're writing your checks if you're an employer, or you're writing their checks if they're employees. I told everybody when I was running, and maybe that was a bad strategy, that I was nothing special, that there were thousands of me out there. How many veterans do we have in Texas?
Quite a few.
Okay. They were literally willing to die to protect our freedoms.
That's right.
So if they're willing to die to protect our freedoms, running for office and being talked about is not a big deal. I think the bigger goal, the bigger obstacle to overcome is a lot of us tend to be pretty humble people.
Yep.
I'm nothing special.
Right.
Maybe there's somebody more qualified. There's got to be somebody more qualified than I am.
Yeah.
That's how I started when I was running for CD4. I said, surely there's somebody more qualified. Let me find them. And I couldn't find them. And then so we wrote down the qualifications we were looking for, and people started saying, well, you did that, and you did that, and you do this. Wow. We're going to write it down. It's pretty impressive, right? So we have to get those people that we trust with that good heart. And those people are in spades in your church. A lot of people that go to the bar, hi, Norm. Norm's not going to do something that's going to hurt his buddies.
Right.
And that's who he's thinking about when he's making a decision.
But today, so I go back to the whole feckless nature of the church. Today we would rather acquiesce. I agree. In fact, my wife and I, we put this on our Christmas card as a closing, that we prefer, as Thomas Jefferson said, a dangerous freedom to peaceful tyranny. And unfortunately, however, we have Lord Wolhalsey kind of gives what happens in a democracy, and he was speaking of a republic, a form of democracy, a Republican form of government. But ultimately, you go from great freedom and liberty to apathy, to an indifference, to back into bondage. And so I think that we have become fat and happy as a society. And, the other thing we talked about was how I'm a little bit of a pessimist sometimes. And one of the things you said, which I thought was great, is that, you without the optimism, you'll never accomplish anything unless you have that kind of. You said it in a different way. What did you?
Well, Douglas MacArthur said, "All courage is based in optimism."
That's it. Thank you. Yes.
You go into battle thinking we're going to win.
Yeah.
Things start to go bad. Okay, well, we'll hold the line. It's not looking like that, but we can give these guys time to prepare. There you're at the Alamo saying, okay, we might die, but ultimately we're going to win.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to the last drop of blood and the last breath, this is worth it, because ultimately I am going to win.
Yes. It's God's own fool. I mean, basically being willing to be fools for God and say, I'm willing to put my name on a ballot, and I'm willing to stand up. It's interesting. We also talked about how Bob Hall has, for some, they consider him to be fairly ineffective as a state senator because he doesn't play the games. And you and I both, and Carol, we all said, we like that. That's what we wish we had more of. People who were so-called ineffective in the House or Senate, but who were willing to stand on principle and willing to do what's right.
Yeah, I don't think the lack of the number of laws in the United States will ever be in your top 10 list of bad things going on.
Absolutely.
If you don't pass a single law, but you stop a bunch of bad laws from passing, you'll get my vote from now on.
Well, and was it Jefferson or Matt? And I think it was Madison who basically talked about if you have a law, or if you're considering a law, you basically present it and then wait a year. And then see if after that year you really need it, and then very carefully consider that and move that into law. And boy, we just don't have anything like that today. How many laws are passed every year?
You're a fan of Churchill.
Yes, sir.
And one of his favorite quotes of mine is, "With 10,000 regulations, you have none."
Oh boy, that's so true.
If you can't keep track, if you outlaw everything I do, and I'm going to commit 3 felonies today on average and not even realize it.
Yeah.
Then the other rules, well, I'm already a felon. It loses its sting.
True.
If I've got the 10 commandments and I break one of them, I feel bad. If I break the federal law and slaughtering one of my sheep, I don't even know about it. Sorry about that happened, but I lose respect for the rest of those laws.
Boy, don't you? That's so true. And we see that today. We see absolute lawlessness in some of our major cities.
Yeah, Bastiat said in the law, is a French philosopher, and if I'm recommending something by a Frenchman, it's got to be good.
Okay, yeah, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he said, you come to a place where you have to choose between morality and law. It starts off the same. It's common sense. You don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do that. But eventually you get to a legalistic system and a moralistic system, and you have to pick between those two. So the legalists will say, yeah, I'm taking this old lady's house, but it's perfectly legal. And then the guy in the ghetto is saying, well, I'm shooting him in the face because he dissed me.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is I don't know what your morality is.
Right.
And over here, you don't have a soul. I know what your legalism is, but you won't do the right thing because you don't have to. And that's where our laws have become. Our laws are no longer moral.
No, they're not. And I think it has a lot to do with the idea that you can't legislate morality.
Exactly.
When what are laws but a judgment of morality?
Well, as long as you're passing a law that says I can't harm you or take from you. But as soon as my dad got out of law enforcement when they passed the seatbelt law. He goes, there's not enough cops in the world to protect stupid from stupid.
I agree. I love that. You can't fix stupid.
Stupid should hurt.
Absolutely. It should.
And a lot of times it'll solve itself.
Absolutely. And so when we look at the 5-star plan, how do we begin? You basically say we start by voting and assisting in all primary elections.
Yes, that is the number one way. It's the easiest way. It's the most comfortable way for conservative Republican voters to make an impact. Once we get to the point of a bad Republican and a Democrat, that's a tough choice. Now, I personally have talked to some people and talked to some chairs that know people who voted for the Democrat over Cornyn just because he's such a bad choice for them. He goes, well, if the only way we can get a good Republican in the seat is to let a Democrat have it for a while, I'm going to vote for the Democrat.
Gosh.
I'm like, I'm not quite there yet.
No, I'm not there at all.
But if you've got a really vile person, let's say Hitler shows up and he's got a huge campaign chest and he's got a big following and he wants your vote in the general election, but I got an R by my name.
Right.
Okay, at that point I'm voting for the Democrat.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet, but we're getting close.
Well, one of the things we talked about was that people have very little understanding of the differences between the platforms. Mm-hmm. What is it about the Democrat platform that you like, and the Republican platform? And PragerU is a great resource on YouTube that I hope more and more people will tune into, because it answers a lot of these questions in a 5-minute segment. You don't have to sit through a show like this. Yes. You get very good information from very, very bright people. But the problem is education, I think, is the key. People understanding why conservatism works. Mm-hmm. And we just lost one of our great economists, great thinkers, Walter Williams, last week. And mm-hmm. what a great mind. I mean, he I think articulated best why the minimum wage laws was so discriminatory against blacks, and yes. even though it was designed to help blacks and the poor, and so this is what we have. We have a lot of good intentions, but we don't have anyone really thinking through the impact that those good intentions have.
Well, Walter Williams, one of his favorite quotes of mine from him, was, "How about this for equality? I'll keep what I earn, and you keep what you earn."
So true.
And that's the essence of intelligence, is brevity. It's yes. the soul of wit is brevity. Yes. If you can get it down to a sound bite, people will bring it in.
Right.
And that's hard to do with deep concepts.
It is.
You can't do sound bites for conservatism a lot of times.
Right.
But you can ask questions of people. You can apply it to different things. And when you say, okay, you want this equality of wealth, well, would you go for an equality of grades?
Yeah, exactly.
We take all the grades and divide them up. And
yes.
the people that work really hard will just drag the slackers along, and everybody gets the same grade. Well, that's no, right. I don't want to share my grade because I work hard for that grade.
Right.
Really?
Right.
I work hard for my money.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you put it in those terms, they start thinking about it. They go, okay, yeah, maybe that's not the best plan.
And it is interesting, the Walter Williams of the world, the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest conservative thinkers in America today, from Breitbart to Williams to Glenn Elder and the like. They all started out as socialists mm-hmm. And Marxists even, mm-hmm. and they came to a realization after looking at the facts. They came to realize, whoa, it's not good.
Well, 47 countries have self-identified as socialists, and 47 countries have failed miserably, with a big dose of misery and starvation thrown in, and tyranny and everything else.
Yes.
It just doesn't work. You can't have a system that treats everybody the same. There's no incentive to work, and there's no punishment for sloth. Well, who's going to work more? Who's going to produce more wealth? And the more wealth there is, the better off all of us are.
True.
If I'm at the very bottom rung, and I'm living good, then I'm a happy man. And I tell my liberal friends all the time, I work on rich people's toys. Okay, if there was a button I could push to make everybody in the world rich except for me, I'd push it because I could charge whatever I wanted to work on your guys' plane. So it's not too many rich people. It's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people don't think that. Now, if everybody's poor, I'm out of work. Nobody's got a private plane for me to work on.
Right.
So I love rich people. They write checks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your book, basically, one of the things you focus on is that it shows how to get involved, mm-hmm. and it's being published in February. Mm-hmm. Covers elections positions, how to run, and what it takes to win. Many a lot of people, and I think you're right, a lot of people don't even realize that these positions exist, and so I think what this book is going to do a good job of is helping to build awareness of what the reality is that's out there.
And not only that, elected officials really don't understand some of their powers and roles.
Right.
I was telling you earlier, there was a county, all 4 county commissioners said no shutdowns.
Right.
The county sheriff said, I'm not going to enforce it. And the county judge said, hey, I got this new crown I'm going to use. I'm shutting everything down.
Yep.
And I turned to the county commissioners and I'm like, what's your job? Well, we run the county and do the budget and the salaries. I'm like, really, the salaries? If the 4 of you pass a law saying, hey, as long as there's one business shut down, the county judge's salary is reduced to $1, how long would this man stand on principle and keep shutdown going?
Boy, isn't that true?
That's about 15 minutes. I said, okay, do that.
Yep.
Everybody within the sound of our voice, whether they're elected or they're a voter or whatever, has an ability. Your ability is to communicate. My ability is to educate. Somebody else's ability is to recruit. If we all combine our specific God-given abilities and push in one direction, you can't stop it.
Right.
So Abbott's one guy. If none of the sheriffs will support it, and the county judges want their paychecks, and these people want to get reelected, they'll go back to following the rules.
So, the state Supreme Court basically denied the Republican Party our appeal that we had signed a contract for the state convention to be held in Houston, and we took it to the state Supreme Court because we had a valid contract. There was no provision, and in fact, the mayor even came out and said, "I'm not going to step in." Ended up doing it anyway and preventing us from having an in-person state convention. The state Supreme Court, Republicans all, denied the Republican Party the right to hold that contract up. So it's not just the state legislature; it's also some of these judges that we have that are sitting in positions of power that have no concern whatsoever for the Constitution, in my opinion.
Well, I had a person tell me before that whole thing happened, and me and my wife were delegates, and you were delegate.
We were. We were in the same Senate district.
Same Senate district.
Yep.
So you were all set up for the video. The video convention. We had to struggle along.
Yeah.
But I had a person tell that before it ever happened. He goes, "Yeah, we're not having this convention in public. There's not going to be an in-person convention. Abbott is not going to be booed by his own party." And how many of those judges owe their judgeships to Abbott?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. So you think that was an inside job?
This man said it before it happened,
Right.
and it happened exactly the way he predicted.
Interesting.
And now you see somebody breaking the Constitution left, right, and center. You see his legislators not speaking out against him in public. This would have never happened.
Yeah.
50 years ago, a sitting governor of Texas tried this of whatever party.
Oh, yeah, never would have happened.
So, my sign when I went down there to the Open Texas rally was, I miss George Bush. Hell, I miss Ann Richards, because she would have never done this.
Whew. Well, I don't know about that. No, I think Ann Richards definitely would have.
She wouldn't have got away with it.
Oh, I think she would have.
I don't think Republicans would have put up with it from her.
Well, maybe not. Maybe that would have been okay.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Agree to disagree.
Let's talk about some things that are good.
Okay.
Because there is some good things happening in our
Yes.
Republican Party, and one of them is our new chair,
Awesome.
Alan West, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. What do you think of him?
I love the man.
Yeah.
He's great. I was a little concerned about voting for him as a delegate. So was my wife, because we were in the middle of an election, and is this a time to switch party leadership? And then the convention happened. And then our governor asked our chairman to ask a couple of elected county chairs to step down because they'd said some bad things, that the coronavirus was a hoax, or that the governor wasn't handling it right. And these people promptly said, "No, it's an elected official, and tell the governor what I just told you." So
Go pound sand.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't think I can almost imagine what Alan West would say to that request.
Yeah,
and we can't repeat it on the air. So
Well, absolutely. So what I love about what he's doing a great job of communicating the philosophy of limited government, of republicanism, and so it's a good start. And so I'm curious. So when do you think you'll present this 5-star plan? Because you've talked with Colonel West on several occasions.
a couple occasions, yeah, we've communicated. I got had him sign my book, and he signed it, to Cousin West, So that's gonna be an inside joke, but yeah, I mean, we're both ex-military.
Yeah.
We're both strong conservatives. We both love history.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot in common. He's a great guy. And I haven't presented it to him. He's a little busy right now. But like I said before, I'm doing my part to get this done.
Yeah.
I know that Kat Parks, the vice chair, she was in charge of candidate recruitment. I've spoken to her on a couple of occasions.
Okay.
She's called me.
Okay.
She's a great lady. And I think if we just turn everybody loose and let them do what they do, I think this thing will be solved in no time at all. What you don't want is 36 million people asking for somebody else's permission to do what they know they need to do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate, this is an interesting opportunity for us to really have a dialogue and a discussion about how do we make the GOP great again. And in Texas, while we are a somewhat Republican state, I think we all tend to agree that just because we have all of our statewide races held by Republicans, this is not a red state, as so many people have said. I think that I think we're naive if we think that there's not a heavy influence of Democrats coming into our state from California, from the left coast, and they're bringing with them their ideology, their philosophy, and it's showing itself right here, even in the city of McClendon-Chisholm and Rockwall County especially. So what I'm frustrated about, and I don't know what you think, is I'm frustrated that we have so many, everybody, like in Rockwall County, if you want to have any say at all, you got to be Republican. So everybody's a Republican, mm-hmm. but there are not that many conservatives anymore, and so. That to me has been my biggest focus is how do we get the rhinos out of our party? And it's not creating a new party, is it?
Not at all. No, that's a disastrous way to go. In my district, CD4, you could split the Republican Party and you'd have two majorities and a minority, no matter how you did it.
Right.
But you can't do that in the state of Texas.
No.
The laws are not favorable. If the Democrats and Republicans will agree on anything, it'll be keeping any third party from ever succeeding. So
absolutely, and I think which is why it I don't know if you saw, but on election night I highlighted or when I did a summary of the election in Rockwall County and that all of those races that impacted Rockwall County. We saw Judge David Bridges, not Judge David Bridges, but who replaced him? Browning. John Browning, great conservative. I'm sorry, John, that I botched that. My fault. So, but Judge John Browning. He had the seat after Bridges died. Great conservative, but we have so many Democrats, but we also in so many of these judicial races, we saw a lot of libertarians running, and literally those libertarian votes were the difference. Had libertarians just stayed within the Republican Party and said, "Hey, let's bring the party to the right a little bit," we could have held those seats, judicial seats, which are important. But now they're in the hands of Democrats. And that, I think, is my biggest concern, is that we're seeing so many of these seats go by the wayside because we are trying to kind of create our own party. We want to be libertarian. And I think I want to be a conservative Republican. I want to have a different discussion. I want us to be set apart within the party.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard people say, when I explained the 5-star program, it's almost a party within a party.
Yep.
And I said, yeah, but the Republican Party's plan is to keep going and expand and grow and be stronger. The 5-star plan plans to end. I want it to turn back to the point where you see a Republican candidate, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's a 5-star candidate. The Republican will mean conservative, the Democrat will mean liberal, and we'll go back to life as usual or life as we want it. And the other problem with the judgeships that you mentioned,
yes,
I think as a rule, when we take civics as conservatives, if I don't know a person and I'm not aware of the race and I don't know the issues, I will pass on voting I'm not supposed to cancel out somebody's vote who knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I take that to heart. I've always taken that to heart. What does that cost us in Texas as our judgeships? If you look at the number of people who vote for president and then you go down ballot and see the number of total votes for judges, they drop off.
Quite a bit, yeah.
And it's almost all conservative drop off because a lot of the liberal voters don't care.
That's right.
It's got a D by its name. I don't care if it has a pitchfork and horns, I'm voting for it. and unfortunately, either we have to get people that vote to spend more than 15 minutes looking at issues and candidates so they can learn about these people. And that's a lot of digging for judges. They can't campaign like regular politicians.
That's right.
Or, and more likely, we just vote for all the Republican judges and say, hey, probably a better idea than the Democratic judges. I don't like that. It's lazy, but that's where we are as a population. Everybody's busy, limited amount of time. A lot of people don't even know these judges are up for election until they get to the polling place.
Yep. And that's the whole purpose of this show, is to try to help educate voters as to who's running, why they're the right person to vote for. And that's hopefully as you work and this is what I consider the true grassroots effort, what you're doing. And that's so important. That's where Republicans are strongest. It's where conservatives are strongest.
And we have talked to people outside of our circle.
Yeah.
I engage with Democrats. I engage with liberals. I've talked to socialists, flaming communists. And when you ask the right questions and you explain things correctly, a lot of times they'll sort of ease back towards you. A lot of times they'll just hit that mental click and go right back to what they were thinking before. Yeah. But I have turned people from a liberal perspective to a conservative perspective with just logic. Like, what would happen if free college? This is the easiest one for me. Free college. I haven't paid off my free high school education yet, and I won't until I die.
Exactly.
I can't afford free college.
Exactly. Boy, that's so true.
So
it really is, and I think that's what's so great about what you're doing. And it's the 5starplan.com, and Robert West is where you can is the source of this, and he's accessible. He'd be glad to talk to you. I know he's very he returns phone calls. I will say that, and emails, and even arrives early when
sometimes 24 hours early.
But no, it really is a pleasure, because I've enjoyed getting to know you more and more since I met you at the selection day back for CD4. But in some ways, I'm glad you didn't get it, because this gives you the opportunity.
I'm glad too.
Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to do this. But I appreciate you coming on my show, and I hope that you will come back.
Oh, I will.
Yeah. So, I do hope that you'll check out that website, because, Robert West is not unusual. He's not unique. He is, like he said, a lot of us believe what he believes, the conservatives do. And what he's trying to do is present a plan that can actually hopefully make a difference, that would actually have a difference for our city and for our nation, for our state, I should say. And I think that what he's proposing is some very important ideas. The problem is, are you willing to run? And are you willing to vote? And are you willing to get 5 people to start talking politics? Because obviously the things that we never want to talk about, right, are religion and politics. Those are my 2 favorite topics of all, and that's why I married the woman that I did, because she was okay talking about those things. Find people who don't mind having a conversation. That's a great place to start. And the reason Robert West is able to move people onto a more conservative mindset is because he opens his minds and is willing to listen and talk through that. And I hope you will be too. Look for people, find people, and have these conversations. But more than anything, get educated. Use opportunities like this show and like so many others online. Go to PragerU, go to Ben Shapiro, become part of the Blaze and the Daily Wire. Be educated. Be an educated conservative. And my commitment to you is that I'll bring more conservatives like Mr. West on this show. And I hope, and I'm looking forward to the next time that we can talk. So until next time, I hope you have a very, very great day, and we will see you next time. Blessings to you all.